Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPaWrites here once again, and today I have a brand new Tiny Tina's Wonderlands video for you. This one, my full review of the game, pros, cons, all of that kind of good stuff, and what I am most excited about with the game going forward. Now, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously, shows you want to see more content like this. I throw up looter shooter videos on this channel pretty regularly, including all kinds of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands content, so definitely make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, all that kind of good stuff if you want to stay tuned for future videos. Anyway, I know this review is a little bit delayed from other ones you've seen. I did not have early access to the game, so I've had to wait, and I wanted to make sure I played through the game completely and also through some of the end game, all of that kind of good stuff. I have two high-level characters. I've done the Chaos Chamber several times. I've played through the entire story and beat the final boss. So I figured this was a perfect time for me to go over all my thoughts with the game. Now, first off, what I love about this game is the combination of classes, multi-classing, the base classes, all that kind of good stuff. Absolutely love it. Compared to the character selection that we've seen with other Borderlands games, I prefer this style. Now, it's not going to be for everyone. I know people fall in love with their favorite characters in those other games. We've had characters like Zero that become NPCs. They're awesome. But for me personally, this customization is what I've always wanted in Borderlands games, where you can mix and match. You can not only pick your main class, but now you can add a secondary class and change that at any time once you're in the end game and really mix it up in a way that I don't think we've seen in the past. You have a spellcaster who maybe adds a familiar with a clawbringer. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm doing with this character. You can do something like spellweaver, spell shot with a backstabber and go for like a hybrid spellcasting melee build. There's all kinds of options, and you're not stuck with your one character. Once you get towards the end game, you can only pick a couple of your class abilities and go fully into the alternate character if you really want to, depending on what you want to do with your build. So I love that option. I really am excited to do a lot more of that. You're going to see a lot of builds from me now that I've gotten to the end game. I've gotten legendaries. I am pretty much maxed out on the majority of what I'm doing, so that's what I'm most excited about. The guns, the weapons, the spells, all that feels really good. I love spells way more in Wonderlands than I ever did grenades in traditional Borderlands games. As you know, you'll have some wonky weapons like this swordfish here, which is pretty hilarious. I like that they do a little bit of silly stuff like this always. Crossbows, you have other things, but you can have weapons and armor and everything that really tailors your build to what you want to do. You can have a melee weapon that's really focused on your spells, and that allows the build diversity to really to lean into that in a way that I think has me excited about the future of this game, and I can't wait as they continue to add more content to explore these builds even deeper. I know eventually we're getting another class as well that'll add a ton more variety. So I'm very excited about that. I love those things about this game, things that really have me excited to dive into the end game and find the perfect loot for my character. Now, the campaign itself is about 10 to 15 hours, I would say, for most people, depending on how much side quests you do, and it could be even longer than that if you do all the side quests, all the side missions, find everything in the game. So completionists are going to have a lot longer to go with that kind of stuff. But what I like about that is it's not too daunting when you want to play through as a second or third time with alternate characters. So I do enjoy that, and it's something that if the base game was like 40 hours long, it's not going to be that. You're not going to have to struggle through that several times. You can beat this in a relatively quick fashion and also experiment with your other characters and all that kind of good stuff. So I do like that quite a bit as well, because the replayability is there, so that way you're not really tied down to just replaying the story and spending all of your time in that. Now, one of my favorite things about the game as well is the addition of this overland feature. There's plenty to explore. It definitely feels different from traditional Borderlands games because of this aspect. You can find loot, you have quests in the open world. There's a lot that sounds familiar about this game if you're a Borderlands fan. So if you do enjoy Borderlands, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy this game. But there's enough that separates it and gives it that medieval fantasy flair, which I really like. And I absolutely love that. As for combat, one of the downsides of this game, in my opinion, is the variety, lack of variety of enemies and bosses and all that kind of stuff. At this point, that's only something that kind of frustrates me. Also, the variety of maps is not really there as what I would want it to be for this game personally. But that's some things that I don't think is the end of the world, to be honest. You worry about it getting stale at some point, but for me personally, I think there's enough there to keep you going, especially when you get to the chaos chamber and you start going through multiple runs and you start to find the secrets and all that kind of good stuff. I think it's not all that bad. I've seen some people say, oh, it's really not a whole lot here, but I disagree with that. Compared to a traditional Borderlands game, the story is not as long, so I kind of understand that. But there is enough variety, there's enough places to go, especially as you really dive into it. Because what ends up happening is that I think a lot of people are rushing through the campaign and not enjoying what else the game has to offer. And so that's just my personal opinion on that, and something that I've been seeing from a lot of people. But again, everyone's going to have their own opinions on whether a game is worth it. So I don't like to suggest, oh, are you going to love this game? Is this game worth it for you? All of that, I don't think none of that matters coming from me, because I'm not the one that's going to tell you whether to buy this or not. I just want to explain why I like this game and where I think it can be improved. Again, the enemy variety is something I would love to see improved upon in the future. The locations, I think, for the mini fights and the chaos chamber, they feel a little bit repetitive. However, the actual locations themselves, I think, are really, really good. And overall, I really enjoy exploring them. There's lots of stuff to find. There's lots of hidden locations as well as secrets on the map that are very cool. So I do enjoy that as well. I think that's something for a lot of people to kind of check out, because they haven't had time to explore everything, I would imagine, and that's something that will definitely be fun to do as time goes on. The co-op has been relatively seamless for me. I know some people have had issues, but for us, we've been playing PS4, PS5 crossplay and have had no issues so far. Sometimes it can be a little wonky. It'll show each other that one of us is down when we're not, when we're still alive, so that's kind of awkward, but not the end of the world. We've had no game breaking issues for us, and it's crazy to hear that there have been so many glitches, because our playthrough was relatively smooth. We beat the entire campaign together and never really got cut off, never really had a ton of issues. So for us, it's been pretty fun. The fact that it's full crossplay is a huge change from traditional Borderlands games, and I absolutely love that. Obviously, that's a huge motivating factor for me personally, because I play on PlayStation, and I know a lot of other people who play on PC that I'm going to be doing playthroughs with. I know people who are on other consoles who I would love to play with, and now that full crossplay has come, I'm super stoked to really dive into it and hopefully be able to play with a lot more people than I would have in other Borderlands games. Now, overall, my thoughts on this game is that I believe it's absolutely worth it if you're a fan of either Borderlands games or just looter shooters in general. It's not a game that you're going to, again, sink your entire time into the campaign or anything like that, but I do believe it's a game that you can sink hundreds of hours into as you explore, as you get different loot, as you perfect your builds, all that kind of good stuff. So for that reason, that's why I believe personally that it is worth it, especially as you dabble in all these various character classes, which I think are awesome. The story itself, I think, is solid. It does show a different side of Tiny Tina, which I love. I think also it ends pretty well. Like I think the ending is solid and is exactly what I would have wanted from it. But overall, it's a Borderlands story that I think is probably a little bit better than you might have expected if you just played Borderlands 3. I know Borderlands 3 is not... I enjoyed the story of Borderlands 3 a lot, but I know there were a lot of complaints because of that edginess and the all that kind of stuff. The side missions are really cool too. The side missions reference a lot of hilarious, like, pop culture references and all that kind of stuff, so I do enjoy that as well. I think that's awesome. Overall, this game is a lot of fun, ultimately, especially if you can play it co-op. This game will provide a ton of value if you are into replaying games to grind out your characters, to level them up, to do all the side quests, everything like that. If you enjoy that type of content, then you will absolutely enjoy this game. If you don't want to make builds, if you don't want to do anything like that, if you just want to play a story, a campaign one time or two times and then call it a day, this game probably is not going to be for you as much as it might be for other people, if I'm just being honest. But that being said, I can't wait to dive into fully into the end game a bit more. I think overall Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is in a great spot, but going forward there are some hopes with seasonal events, with DLC, all that kind of good stuff, that we see an expansion on enemy types, that we see an expansion on bosses, that as they adjust maybe some of the targeted loot so people can specifically farm. The way they do the Chaos Chamber loot, I think, is fantastic. So if you're looking for only spells, you can farm for a ton of spells repeatedly. I think that's fantastic. I love that. All that being said, it's Borderlands with a fantasy flair, and if you think you'll like that, definitely check out Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Anyway, my name is JoPaWrites. I hope you enjoy the video, and I'll catch you all later.